Why am I getting hungry? Feels. Ah, shit. Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Thank you so much for tuning in. So in today's video, I am going to share with you how I managed to make a nice chunk of profit from the sale of my old house in order to buy this house. So you can see from the title how much I made. £166,000 in profit. So before I get into the video, first and foremost, disclaimers. Number one, I am not a property expert. I'm not a property expert. This is basically me relaying to you what I think worked for me in terms of what garnered that kind of a profit margin. So these are the things that basically worked in my favor. So I'm not a property expert. I'm sure there's lots of other ways that you can make a profit, but this is what worked for me. Secondly, this is gross profit. So we're not kind of factoring in, number one, your agency fees, your solicitor fees. There are other fees that's going to dip into your profit margin. So if you buy a house for X amount, you sell it for X amount, the money that you're left with is after fees, obviously. And I know currently there's a way that people are trying to cut out those fees by going with a certain type of estate agent that don't charge, the agency fees. That might be an option for you if you're trying to kind of retain as much profit as possible. But I know for me, having bought this house through an estate agent that was set up in that way, that the sellers wanted to retain a lot of the profit, so they used this particular agent that weren't charging a huge agency fee. I know for me it was a disaster. It was a disaster buying a house, right, through these people that use this kind of agency. So I can just imagine, for me as a seller, it wouldn't work. It wouldn't work. So it just depends on the kind of thing the kind of service that you want. I know for me, I wanted to I wanted to sell my house quickly. That was number one. So you need somebody that's what an estate agent does in terms of selling your property. Obviously, they sell your property. So they are experienced. I use Ludlow Thompson. Shout out to them. They're I think they might be outside of London, but they're a good local estate agency in London, and they represented my property extremely well. I think that contributed to, number one, the amount of money that I was able to make, and also number two, the speed at which I sold my property, because estate agents are people that are going to represent your property. They're going to be able to speak to your buyers in a certain way that will be able to kind of garner the sales that you need. So you need good people representing your baby. You want good people trying to get money for you. So for that reason, I wouldn't have gone with purple bricks. I wouldn't have gone with purple bricks, maybe at another time. But I just know for me now, they're kind of slow. So for me as a buyer, when I was buying my property from my sellers who were selling through purple bricks, everything was slow. So I think that's how they make their money, by not charging a lot, but having lots of people on their books, obviously, because they're not charging much. But that really lengthens the whole buying process. And I can imagine, as a seller, that will annoy people, because people can pull out at any time during a purchase. And if at that time, if I didn't want this house so badly, I could have easily just pulled out, because they were just on a long thing, man, on a long thing. Remember, your estate agent, right? They're going to be doing paperwork on your behalf. They're going to be contacting people. They're the go-between. So if your go-between is just like lagging and lapsing and just being tired, and no, it can save you money, but they might jeopardize the whole entire project. So think carefully about going for estate agents that say 0% commission or whatever they call it. Now I can get into my tips. So tip number one. What I did was I took advantage of an opportunity. So at the time when I was purchasing my house, the council were offering a certain percentage discount, and that propelled me to just get my ass moving and buy the house before the discount changed. Because before that, the discount was, I think, 70%. And just to clarify, what I'm referring to is the council, if you're in the UK, you'll know about this, but I'm aware that people outside the UK might be watching this. So the opportunity that I took advantage of was that the council in the UK, they own properties, obviously, and if you're a tenant and you want to purchase that property, they give you a nice discount. So back in the day, I think probably going back maybe 20, 30 years, you could get 70% discount on that property price. And I think it's dropped, you know, considerably. Obviously 70% discount, it is giving that. But yeah, I think that amount has dropped considerably over the past couple of decades. So what propelled me, the 25-year-old me that had just got my first, you know, real paying job, I was in the job for a year, I was just like, I'm on it. Because they were going to drop that percentage discount again. So I said, let me get in there before, you know, when I come to buy, it's, oh, you only get 10% off. So I think when I purchased, I managed to get 35 or 40% discount, but it was a nice discount. So that's the thing, try and capitalize on any opportunities that there are out there. For me, it was the council. Now, as you watch further videos that I will be kind of putting out there, you will see that spirituality is extremely important to me. It's the foundation by which I do everything. So when I say opportunities, that's the opportunity that was at my disposal. For you, it might be something else. It might be foreclosure. It doesn't necessarily have to be, okay, are the council giving discounts? It could be anything. Just capitalize on opportunities. Tip number 2, invest in up and coming areas. So the area where I purchased my property, shout out to Elephant and Castle. You've been really good for me. If you're a Londoner, you'll know what Elephant and Castle is all about. Especially back in the day, Elephant and Castle. I'm not talking about new Elephant and Castle, old Elephant and Castle. So Elephant and Castle is kind of an area where the residents, they don't have massive disposable income, socio-economical standing is not the highest. So yeah, basically the population, they're not loaded, and the area reflects this. Try and invest your money in areas that are basically a little bit on the affordable side, areas where people don't have huge amounts of disposable income, because the properties will be cheaper in those areas. And if you're based in the UK, try to invest in areas where there's a huge residential population. Find out the areas where the council has most of the properties, because once they do decide to sell their properties, because they get such a huge discount, they are going to have some kind of leveraging opportunities where, fine, they'll list the property for the topmost part of what it's able to command, so the top asking price. However, if you don't pay that, because they haven't invested that much into the property in the first place, they might be more willing to negotiate. Tip number 3, invest in areas where there's lots of regeneration. So back to Elephant and Castle, that area had a lot of developers some years ago decide, okay, we're going to capitalize on the fact that this town is right next to Zone 1. So literally you cross the river from Elephant and Castle and you're in one of the richest areas in the whole of the UK. Now, Elephant and Castle never did reflect this, that you could so easily get from one area to the next. It never reflected that ease of accessibility. So I think that's what developers kind of tapped into, and they realized, hold on a minute, this place is, although it's a ghetto, it's not far from Zone 1. It's not far from the city. However, the price is dirt cheap. Why not capitalize on the proximity of this location to such a prestigious location by offering affordable housing for people that want to live next to Zone 1 but not necessarily in Zone 1 and pay Zone 1 prices. So that's what's currently going on in Elephant and Castle, and that's why I decided, okay, this is a good time to sell, because the regenerators had come in, like luxury properties now being flung up all over the place. Elephant and Castle does not look the same. If have a look on the internet, get yourself on Google and see where in your local area or wherever the part of the world that you're in, find out, are there any regeneration opportunities, and these will be the best places to buy. And also keep your ear to the ground, because you know, these people can't just come and start regenerating all over the place. The local residents have to be involved in the whole process, in terms of, fine, they're going to tell you this is what they're doing, but if the residents will know, if you're a family member of that resident, there you go. So, you know, get it out in the open. I want to buy a property and just see what's out there. A lot of these things sometimes are word of mouth. Tip number 4, which is also in line with tip number 3. So aside from regeneration, you also have, which is kind of linked to regeneration, improved transport links. So I know in London, I think it's called Crossrail. They're building this new route called Crossrail, and it will kind of connect lots of different areas together in one seamless rail link, whereas, you know, it was a bit all over the place before. Now with transport, listen, if you live in a city or anywhere that you live, transport is at the center of everything. The quicker you can get things done, right? The quicker you can make money, the quicker you do everything. So the ability for you to move from one place to the next with speed is always a lucrative thing when it comes to where people choose to invest, to live, invest their time, etc. So you want to find out where is it that's being upgraded in terms of new transport links, new airports, whatever it is. You know, property does take work to get these things right. Nothing is ever by just luck. It's all about being mindful of what's going on in your environment, being aware, being commercially aware, being aware of psychological shifts even. You have to be mindful. It's a smart game. You can't just wake up and, oh, I made all this money. Think a little bit. Number 5, add value to your property. So for me, the value that I added was the property that I bought was a studio flat. Now, ain't nobody trying to live in a studio flat where you come in and you see my bed. So immediately I put up partition walls and I converted a studio flat into a 1-bed flat. And that added quite a bit of value because now I've sold the property. They don't need to do a thing. They just need to move in. So for me, now being in my second property, that's also the model that I repeated. My second property was a dive. I needed to renovate the whole entire thing. But what that means is I have added value. So I've totally modernized the whole entire place. So always buy, and I could have bought somewhere that was just ready to move in. Never buy places that's just ready to move in. Let's make money. Buy places that are tore up, that are mash up, right? But also factor in how much it's going to take to renovate. So for me, my place had asbestos and my surveyor didn't tell me it had asbestos. So that was an unforeseen issue. I wasn't aware of it. I didn't budget for it, but by the grace of God, it didn't turn out to be that much. So yeah, be careful. Be careful. You don't want to invest in something that's just totally, even if you are, get your surveyors, get your property experts, get people to come and do valuations. Okay, if I do this, if I modernize it, you ask the estate agent once they come around, how much you think I can get? So invest wisely. Number 6, what I did was I rented my place out. Now this doesn't essentially add any value or anything like that. It puts you at a better advantage in terms of how much you're investing in that property. So had I not rented it out and had I lived there, I would have been paying the mortgage. And say for example, the mortgage was 700, 800, no, 900 pounds a month, right? With me renting it out, I'm able to charge a little bit more. And then I was fortunate enough to be living somewhere where I had a good arrangement with my previous partner. So the rent wasn't anywhere near what my mortgage would have been. So what that did was it allowed me to not shell out too much from my pocket to invest in that property. And that's what you might want to look into, because it's an investment, but then you don't want to go and invest even more into the investment. You want to keep your costs as low as possible. So that's how I think I kind of maximized the profit I was able to make. Okay, so those are my 6 tips. Drop down in the comments. I'm sure there's other things that I didn't mention, things that might have worked for you, things that might be rife out there for being the next big thing to make more money from property. Like I said, this is what works for me. But if there's anything else, drop down, let's talk about it. And by the way, just be mindful. We're not talking about £1, £10, £100. We're talking about hundreds of thousands of pounds, okay? So investing in property isn't a game. You have to have your ducks in a row. You have to know what you're doing. You have to be smart about it. You're not just gonna take uncalculated risks. This is a very risky business. So ensure that you're investing with considerations. You're investing bearing in mind, okay, what are my potential losses? Because nothing is stable in property. Like I said before, things are moving. This is a market. Markets shift all the time. So the market might be hot right now. You buy the property, and then when you come to sell, something happens. It's affected the market prices. So be very vigilant when you're investing. Ask the right questions. Do your research extremely well. But don't be shy. Life is all about risks. If you don't invest, if you do not take chances, you will just be Life is not about that. Life is about this, okay? Please remember that one. Life is not about stability. Life is about taking chances. That's how you enjoy life. So go out there, invest, get that money in. Let's be boss women, boss men. Make money. Let's make bread. Let's make bread. Get your head out of Instagram, social media, go and spend that money. I bought my house when I was 25 years old. I didn't even know what I was doing, but it's turned out to be one of the best investments I've made. It's really set me up on like a good trajectory for the rest of my life. For me, myself, a lot of people say, oh, you should be so proud you have to me, it's just capitalizing on opportunities. This house doesn't represent this huge thing that people kind of take houses to represent, if you know what I mean. It just kind of signifies to me my ability to create. That's all it is. It doesn't reflect hugely on my self-worth. I just think everybody is able to leverage opportunities that are around them. That's what I think a property represents. And it also means for me that when my child comes, their reality won't be the same as mine. So all I saw within my present reality as a child was people living in social housing. So for me, this is what this house also represents, that when my child gets here, they will be aware that, okay, I don't have to rely on the government to give me, you know, everything that I need. Even though I did capitalize on the government's assistance, yes, I did, I'm not going to downplay that. But it's all about, like I keep saying, using opportunities to your advantage. So when my child does come, they will be aware, okay, mommy bought her house, I can do the same. And that's very important to me. It's all about changing your world, not coming into this world and leaving it the same way that you found it. We're all capable of bigger and better things. So thanks for watching. Please subscribe to my thing. Trying to grow my amount of subscribers so I can interact with a lot more people. I wanna talk to everybody, you know? I wanna talk to everybody. So subscribe, like, share, comment. What else is there? I think that's it. Thank you so much for watching. Have an awesome day. Spend your money wise.